We're so glad to see you.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Hi, everyone. We're so glad to see you. I brought Vicki in to help moderate this because I'm terrified that we're going to have another tech issue, and she's a goddess, and I am not with that. So today we have Tara and we have Erlinda. They're going to be talking about their adventures and also about Tara's new book. And we're just so glad they're here, and welcome.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Well, over here it's afternoon. I'm East Coast. She's West Side.
Yeah, I just got up.
And I'm just forcing myself to transition from coffee to this beer I'm going to open for our drinking and drinking. Yeah, just drinking and drinking pleasure.
I couldn't decide what beer to open today. Although I was going to show some labels that these are already been done, but that I enjoyed the Russian River peach beer that Natalie brought to my show Thursday, which I was going to drink with Tara, but I guess I'm kind of drinking it with Tara, right?
That's true. Hey, man, it's 2021. We adapt, we pivot.
And then this is the Celis Brewery in Austin. Christine Celis is their Creek Lambic. It's actually not a Lambic, it's a Creek. It's delicious. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, let's get talking, and we'll open while we talk. So, Herlinda, why don't you tell the good people who you are?
Hi, everybody. I'm Herlinda. Oh, look at how much wider that is now, so they can see my door and into the bathroom. It's a good thing I cleaned over there. Hi, everybody. I'm Herlinda Harass. I live in Santa Rosa, California, in beautiful Sonoma County, when it's not on fire. And it's actually a nice rainy day today, so we are very grateful for that. I co-host a live broadcast radio show on KSRO near San Francisco. I've been doing that for 7 years now, which has been really fun. I started off with Joe Tucker as my co-host of Rate Beer and helped with the Rate Beer Festival that was here a couple of times, which was, thank you for that. Yeah, I enjoy my beer shelves. Yeah, drinking and drinking. And now I co-host with Mark Carpenter, who was the head brewer for Anchor for 45 years and a big supporter of women in all aspects of beer. As Tara knows, he's wonderful. He's 77 now, and he's got some good stories, I'll tell you. And then I was coordinating the craft beer program at Sonoma State University. And during the pandemic, of course, there is no hands-on of that right now. So there is none of that. I am also a mom of 2 girls in their 20s. One likes beer. One loves beer. And she lives in Brooklyn, and the other one's with me, and she's finishing college, and she's gluten-free. So I am looking for a great gluten-free beer to try to convert her. Yeah.
Her friends like your beer, though. We're going to talk about that in a little while.
And then I wish they'd at least told me. I asked her, I said, could you at least tell me how it was? And then right now I'm actually working in a vaccine clinic since I can't travel. And we'll talk about that too, because that's been interesting. I think someday there's going to be a show like NASH about it someday.
Fair enough. So most of what we're going to talk about today is pre-COVID, but definitely COVID has factored into our lives very heavily. So we'll certainly talk about that too. So just to let you know who I am, other than Herlinda's greatest friend, and I mean that in every way.
I will do this.
I've been a professional journalist for going on 25 years now. I've been specializing in beer coverage for about 16 years now. I'm a freelance journalist covering drinks, dining, and destinations. My biggest client in that realm is Forbes. I'm the beer and spirits contributor to Forbes, which is really the main reason why companies fly me around the world to come visit. I'm also a beer educator. I teach 2 college 4-credit classes, one on beer, one on spirits, many other things. And as Herlinda mentioned, or Melissa, I have a book coming out. It's the first comprehensive history of women in beer, starting 200,000 years ago, coming up to the present, and looking forward to the future. And I'll be traveling around to promote the book this fall and next year. So hopefully I can come to a town near you. But we wanted to start by talking about one place that Herlinda and I have been separately, and we were supposed to go last year together, but you know how all those things happened. And we thought it just gives sort of like our individual experiences, give somewhat of an idea of what our travel lives are like. So, Hurley, take it away.
And it's not always glamorous, I'll tell you that. Oh, Tara's book, they were asking what the title of your book is.
Oh, thank you. I got to open it up. To be honest, I don't see the comments yet, so I have to change the screen. So the title of my book, there we go, is, what is my book called? It's called A Woman's Places in the Brew House, A Forgotten History of Alewives, Brewsters, Witches, and CEOs. And it's on pre-sale now on Amazon and an indie website for independent bookstores, and I'll pull that up during the talk because I don't remember it offhand. But yeah, Amazon if you want to pre-order, and it drops September 21st. Mm-hmm. So that's when you can get your hands on that copy. And we're going to be giving 2 books away, I think, during this session, as Melissa said. So Go ahead.
Very exciting. And a lot of our beer traveling together or meetups, different places, has been for research for her book. And I am happily, either along for the ride or driving sometimes too, as well.
We're taking pictures.
I am her paparazzi, and that's been really, really exciting. But like we said, everything from a trailer park bar, karaoke bar in Nashville to an afternoon reception at the Belgian ambassador's home in Washington, D.C., which is actually how we met. I don't know if you guys might know Ruth Berman. I know her book's so exciting. And Ruth Berman, who owns Bon Beer Voyage, she invited us both to the Belgian ambassador's home for a reception from the media on tourism, and it ended up it was just a few days after they had a bombing in the Brussels train station, which both of us have been in several times, and Tara and I super duper bonded there. What will also when you've got, we're at the beer bar, there's no wine at this event. It's all killer Belgian beers, and there's Westmalle, and they have the Roquefort and everything there, and chocolate, and no wine. And I was we were both of it and how this and I like that, and yeah, we became pretty good friends right then. And then we went to the Granville. What was that place called? The Granville.
So I love a lot of beer bars in Washington, D.C., but this one rises above. And sadly, it closed. I think it might have actually closed before the pandemic. It was before. It was called Dr. Granville Moores. And if you have been to Dr. Granville Moores in D.C., put it in the chat, because was such a dive bar.
It was awesome.
And it had probably the best selection of Belgian beers I've ever seen in the United States outside Philadelphia, and killer Bloody Marys, killer mussels. It was a Belgian beer bar, and it looked like, picture your favorite dive bar. That's what it looked like. So we went there.
That's what it felt.
What?
In Belgium. It felt like we were in Belgium too.
It did. It sure felt like that we were in Belgium. And, I have complained a lot about traveling. I just realized getting ready for this session that I've complained about traveling since I was a kid traveling. And so Herlinda likes to say that day is the closest she's ever gotten me to Belgium, because she spent our entire friendship trying to get me to Belgium. And I'm like, I don't need to go to Belgium. I haven't been invited on a press trip to Belgium. No, leave me alone. But she finally got me to agree to go. And do you want to tell that story now, or get back to the beginning and then get to that story a little later? Up to you.
Well, that's kind of how not really it ends, but
okay.
I finally talked her into going to Belgium. She had a bad experience with a boy or something in Bruges years ago. I'm not
in Belgium.
Not going to Belgium. And I finally talked her into it because, once again, the book. we had, we're going to see Sophie. We had people we were going to meet. And then I was in Italy in February and judging the Birra dell'Anno in Italy, the beer of the year, and had gone to Zurich. Like every place was empty, like the square in Florence and Milan. Technically the virus wasn't there yet. And I went
you're talking, it's the end of February in 2020.
Well, I flew there February 10th.
Okay.
And went to Milan, got to see the Last Supper, which is like, you could never get in there. Usually it's like 3 months. I'm like, man, I was able to get in that pretty quickly. And started to realize that there was a big problem going to be happening. And went and judged in Italy in Rimini, and then went to Florence with one of the other judges. And she and I were walking around Florence, and it was completely empty also. And it was a little eerie. And this was like, it was still hadn't hit there yet. A friend of mine works for the, he's at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, and he's working on the COVID task force for the military. And he said, I missed it by 10 days. And that's why I'm pretty grateful, even though I've been home and not able to travel. Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to Belgium too, Stephanie. So I had to, 4 phone calls, and several deaths later. In Italy, I finally talked American Airlines into letting me fly out of Zurich. And then Tara was coming to my house to meet me. And we were supposed to go up to Seattle. And I was like on her about like sanitizing and cleaning and take, vitamin C and everything. And back then at the beginning of February.
Well, so this is once you're already back from Europe.
Yeah.
And having just been in Milan and in Europe, and you guys remember that COVID hit Europe and Milan first before it came here. And so Herlinda had just been like surrounded by this, and she's very health conscious anyway, and it is everybody's mom, right, about these things. So I had a press trip scheduled to San Francisco and so I live outside Philly, Jersey. Anyone here in Jersey? So I was traveling to San Francisco to visit Anchor Brewing and Hodling, which is the distillery that Fritz from Anchor founded. Anchor doesn't own it anymore. So anyway, March 4th, I was flying out to the West Coast. And by then, COVID had already killed a couple people in a nursing home outside of Seattle and was about to make San Francisco the second hotspot. So Herlinda, as I'm getting ready for this trip, is telling me all kinds of stuff. And like, I believe her because I learned what happens when I don't believe her. I usually apologize and say, you're right. You're always right. I don't know why I argue with you. You're a witch. You know what's happening. But so she was like, what did you tell me to do to get on the plane? You were like, do all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
You're like, sanitize, bring a sanitizer. And when I got there, she like bathed me. I think you took like a vat of sanitizer and like dumped it on my head when you picked me up at SFO. And then I mean, I'm like stalling because I can't decide. We're like so off script right now, but that's cool. So I'm deciding like, should we continue with that story or should I just stop? Herlinda, why don't we stop, get back to COVID and take it back from the beginning? Because we do have some good stories and we really put a little work into organizing this properly. But as you can see, we're always like, blah, 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 blah. And we get off on tangents, which is fun and totally fine for this forum. But is that cool with you? Should we actually take them to China now? All right. So we're leaving San Francisco and we're going back to the beginning of our script, which puts Herlinda in Shanghai.
Oh, okay. Well, so you mean when we were supposed to speak at that beer festival in Shanghai, or do you mean when I was actually in Shanghai?
when you were in Shanghai. Oh, so we're starting with China. And I think I mentioned at the beginning, Herlinda and I were supposed to go last year, courtesy of our friend Michelle Wang. She was Herlinda's friend first. Herlinda's going to tell you who Michelle is, but she's very prominent in craft beer in China. And she was going to have us come speak at this beer festival last year in 2020. Well, Herlinda actually got to go do it in 2019, and also be involved in the country's first, what was it, olive oil showcase or something, trade show?
It was their first olive oil summit ever in China.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And I was also the English co-host for the first Chinese Brewers Association Awards, which was pretty interesting. I know I'm seeing a lot of people talking about like things that were canceled, and I know, and I'll tell you what, that's why I'm working in a vaccine clinic, you guys, so we can get back to that travel and we can reschedule things again, and it's getting better. It's getting better. So so I'm trying to find, of course, now my iPad decides it's going to die. Yeah, not my laptop. I'm on my laptop with all of our notes. So
tell us about Shanghai, sweetheart. Okay, what did you do there, and where did you stay?
So when I first got there, well, maybe we should tell them how we like kind of got into this. Like, so Tara has a master's in journalism. If you're wondering how all this happened in the first place, because this is the first thing people ask me. Yeah, right. She's like, thank you. Michelle's like, thank you. So Tara's got a master's in journalism from a couple different places, and I'll let you tell about that, because I didn't plan to go into journalism. She's had a plan since she was 9 years old. So, tell them how that happened when you wanted to become Christiane Amanpour.
So it turns out, we just found out somewhat recently, the two of us, that both of us wanted to be Christiane Amanpour when we were little. Excuse me, Christiane Amanpour, if you don't watch CNN, has been the very long time chief international correspondent. And she's on BBS. I've always thought she was the coolest. I mean, badass is like overused at this point, but like she really is. So anyway, so I grew up traveling with my family. My mom is a huge Europhile. And so I was fortunate as a kid, although I didn't always see it that way. We would go to Europe a bunch on summer vacations. And my mom and her family of origin have been going to Puerto Rico for like 70 years in a row at Christmas time. And we've just gotten involved. It's basically my second home. We're not Puerto Rican. We're Jews from Long Island.
Better Spanish than I do. And my mother was born in Mexico.
And so that's true. My mom raised me and my brother to be bilingual. And so I grew up traveling a lot. And as I said before, I got sick of it. I would complain. I was a brat. I sat on the floor at the Louvre where my mom, I don't even really remember this, but my mom always brings up, she made me, my dad, and my brother see like 3 things at the Louvre. And then she was like, go, do whatever you want. I'll meet you when it closes. And I sat there on the floor like this, glaring at everybody.
Oh, I can totally see her doing that.
Because, I enjoy my trips. I love them. But like, Herlinda's constantly asking me to go here, there, and everywhere. And I'm like, no. I'll get more into that in a minute. So I decided I wanted to become a TV journalist when I was about 9. I really feel like growing up traveling had a lot to do with that, because we didn't like go and stay in nice hotels or do like the tourist trail. My mom would always like try to take us to find like local color, as like is her favorite word in the world, and we would go and like eat the local food and try to like get invited into people's houses, and as much as she could show us of like how people really lived was how we would travel. And so I feel like that lent itself to me wanting to become a journalist, because I knew that a lot of people in America like have such blinders on. They don't take interest in things that don't jive with their beliefs. They don't look outside themselves. And I really wanted to like tell stories that would get people to kind of go, huh, you know what? I didn't know that. I'd never thought of that. And I want to do something about that. Like, I wanted to motivate people to take positive action in their communities and in the world. So that's why I became a TV journalist. Never made it to become Christiane Amanpour, because around the time of the first Gulf War, I decided I was
Amanpour.
Very good. I decided that I didn't want to be an international correspondent anymore. Blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to 2005. I left TV. Well, I had been a Philadelphia TV news reporter, left that in 2005, started freelancing, worked for the Philly Tourism Bureau as my biggest client. And back then, Philly was really hot for craft beer. And so I was covering a lot of like the beer bar openings, the new brewery openings, and I decided to get into that, like really focus on beer, because I really love beer, the possibility of beer being an economic driver. I was really into the idea of culinary tourism before that word existed. And I loved like the ethos, the community, the eco-friendliness, et cetera, of craft beer. And so I started focusing on writing about beer, and I guess here I am. Okay, now you.
I was quite the opposite of that charmed life that she's had. I'm a Navy brat, and my parents, well, my dad got to travel a lot on ships, but not cruise ships, aircraft carriers. He did, 3 tours of Vietnam, and he had gone like all over the place, and always came back with, amazing photos, recipes. He would cook for us, do things like that. And I wanted to go to the places that they were going, but instead I was in the back of, Tara is off at the Louvre having a tantrum. I'm in the back of my parents' station wagon, on the way to Texas every summer in the Mojave Desert, which actually is beautiful too, but in a different way. But I didn't actually make it to Europe until I was 42. And my kids I have 2 girls, I'm a single mom, and not a lot of budget for like traveling and stuff, but I'd always, I always say yes when somebody says, come and visit, or come and help us with something, or like volunteering. And volunteering has led to a lot of great opportunities for me as well. And so we're like very, very, very different lives there. And I was actually pre-med. I was a biology major, and so I didn't, journalism wasn't my thing, but I was drinking a lot of beer in college.
What kind of beer? Well, you were in California. You might have been drinking good beer. What did you drink in college?
Pete's Wicked Ale was big here.
Nice.
And I couldn't really afford that, but there were people that could, and then they would bring that to our dorm room. And then I also had a resident advisor one time, and that's how I got kind of introduced, my first introduction to Belgian beer. One of our resident advisors said, "Hey, come to my room. I have something I want you to try." And I'm like, this is the 80s, right? So I'm like, I don't do drugs. And he's like, drugs, because I just came back from Europe with my parents, and I have some Belgian beer. And because you need to try it, you need to expand your horizons. So I was like 18 years old. So I tried this, and all I remember, I had a monk on it, and it was like, what is this? And how do I find more of this? I eventually ended up becoming a bartender. And like, while I was still in school, and started working in a place that had the best domestic like craft. And this is like, this is probably like 91, and imported beer list in north of San Francisco. And we're having Chimay and things like that really got me, and was like, someday I'm going to go there. But I didn't actually make it to Europe till I was like 42. I'm looking at some of my notes here so I can. And then Tara and I discovered that also we were both like bookworms, and both of our parents, both of our moms, not my dad. Our moms used to yell at us, "Get your nose out of the book and look around."
When we were traveling, like, my mother would bribe me to read books, but then I would be so bratty about. There was one year we went to Israel as a family, and I distinctly remember that it was oh God, I feel like such a brat even saying this now. Okay, I was young. Cut me some slack. Well, no, I would still do this actually. We had been 3 years in a row overseas, 3 summers in a row, and it was like interfering with my social life or something. And we went to Israel, and I could care less. It was boring.
And I would have
And-
killed to have done this trip.
And so I'm like in the back of the car because we rented a car, and I'm reading, and she's like, if you don't put that book down and look out the window, I'm going to throw it out the window.
Yes.
And at the same time, Herlinda's mom is telling her the same thing.
Was
And
telling
we
me-
didn't even meet for
Yeah.
like another 40
Mine
years.
was
It's
to
so
look
romantic.
to practice in the Mojave Desert instead, or we were stationed in Washington State also, which was a fantastic place to be stationed. And then, so I would have swapped lives with her easily. She speaks better Spanish than I do, even though both my parents are fluent because of her time in Puerto Rico, things like that. Although we did drive down the coast of Mexico when I was 15 as well.
And I've never been to Mexico, and I'm dying to.
What? Okay, we'll fix that. We have people. Jessica and me, we have to go see her in Mexico City.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Okay. See, like,
So
that's another
we're
weird
into
person. Like,
the radio part of this, though, I'm very involved in community things in my county. Obviously, I'm working in a vaccine clinic now, and I've helped with fires and things all along. But Chamber of Commerce's and all that, and I'm surrounded by wineries and breweries as well. So Russian River Brewery's 5 miles from
and
me.
distilleries and meaderies and cideries.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
People, yeah. So the good thing, people like to come here.
It's heaven on earth.
Yeah,
It's the best place in the country. I think it has everything. Go ahead.
it's pretty awesome in our food and everything too. So Russian River Brewery's the new one is 5.3 miles that way. And the pub, Russian River Pub, is 5.8 miles that way. And so I'm kind of like, in a great destination where people always want to come to as well. And I was working in radio, but I was selling radio, and this was like in 2002. And the guys from Lagunitas, actually, Lagunitas was super small then, and Tony and Ron were sponsoring our concerts in the backyard we used to have for the
Tony's the founder of Lagunitas, and Ron was like employee number one.
yes, and definitely the culture, like those two. So they were actually still pouring beers back then at these concerts, and then they asked me to start helping them with events, for volunteering. And I used to be an EMT, so I was doing first aid for their, beer circuses and things as well. And started like really and every time I did more tours and things, I was learning more and more and more about the process and about the beer and the culture, the type of people that were coming. And also like Tara was saying earlier, it's such a big part of not just our economy, but all over the world. Like the economy, when people come here, I've done tours through the United States Naval War College for their international program. I've toured 83 different nations, officers here so far. And even the ones who don't drink say, I want to learn more about, the industry here, because I know it's a big part of America's and California's economy. And so I've been in a good position for that. One day I was at a winery drinking some wine, and the owner got a call about his new brewery he just started. And it was the very first Brouhaha show they started on KSRO, which Joe Tucker was going to be the first co-host for. And they needed someone to come in that day with the brewery. And I was telling him, you need this cheese with that. Because I'm also a private chef as well. I've been on TV for cooking and stuff. And I said, you need to, bring this cheese for it. He goes, you're coming with me. And then KSRO, I went on the air, and KSRO said, would you keep coming back? And can you help us get breweries? Because you know a lot of the breweries. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And then helping with the Rate Beer Festival, met all these international brewers, because it was the top 100 like breweries in the world or beers in the world and pubs. And they started inviting me over and to judge or to speak, and, paying for me to go and staying in not as nice hotels as Tara gets to stay in Poland, though. But I do love Poland. And Lithuania asked me to help them with their first craft beer festival, and flew me over, and I got different breweries there that they had never seen. And actually, there's some pictures of Lithuania with people taking pictures of Lagunitas like there, and it was like such a big deal to them. We think of it as like everywhere now, but back then they were like, I can't believe Lagunitas is here in Lithuania, and they're like taking pictures of the beer and the labels, and they were just like, oh my god. And And it's so fun to see their reactions. Like, we're lucky here, but we got the people who are like, where's the new beer? Where's the latest beer? And they're just like, it's all, kind of all the American stuff is, new to them. Depends on where you are, but Portugal as well. So my friend Glenn Payne got me into judging, and I judged the Italian Craft Beer Festival, like I was saying before. I judged the Polish National Beer Festival. I judged the Iberian Awards for Portugal, Spain, and the Basque area. And just every time you go and judge, so I know there was a segment on judging. Like every time you go and judge, you're going to meet people who want you to come and judge their events and come to their towns and their countries. So, even if it's just you're volunteering, doing things like that, it opens up opportunities. And I've had people tell me, I can't ask anybody if I can go stay at their house and, in another country. I'm like, I'm sure you've been asked to come visit, right? And they say, yes, hello, Portugal. Obrigada.
Nice.
I know how to say cheers in like 12 languages, but we got that in Lithuanian. But I think a lot of it is saying yes and just being open for the opportunity. And that's how that happened for me. Well, Tara went to school for it, and so if you're like really serious about it, she can tell you more about the path for that. But
the trajectory to get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that working for such a prestigious title has helped. What?
I'm just telling them. I'm just reminding them Forbes.
Forbes, thank you. So Forbes does have a very, very strict travel policy. They have some strict rules that make us avoid ethical conflicts of interest. But
really no morals or ethics in radio, so it works out really well for me.
Despite that, I am fortunate to get a lot of invitations. I actually just got my first two 2021 press trip invitations, and one was to Mexico and one was to a spa in the Midwest, which I'm kind of still considering, but probably not. I said no to Mexico. What?
Did you say a spa?
Yeah, I mean, so part of the problem, I mean, I know I'm talking a lot about I complain about traveling. I mean, so working for Forbes, I do get the whole range of invitations. I'm not going to say everything that I do is 5-star business class, but I have done a lot of 5-star business class, transatlantic, trans-Pacific flights. I did fly business class to China. The best night of sleep I've ever gotten in my life was business class on British Airways to London because they didn't have any Wi-Fi. So all I could do was drink sparkling wine and sleep. It was so glorious. But so, and it's almost embarrassing, to be honest, sometimes, because on some trips, I have very clearly been put up in these rooms that are crazy. China was one of them. That's probably the nicest place I've ever stayed in my life.
China was the most luxurious also when they sent me there. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but as when Herlinda and I were talking about what we wanted to say, one thing that we both really wanted to emphasize is, but it's not all glamorous. So, I mean, some of the non-glamorous stories are ridiculous. So yes, it's super luxurious. In China, for instance, I learned how to play polo on a horse on a beach on the South China Sea at this beach resort on an island. And the guy teaching me was this hot Brit who's one of the top polo players in the world, who plays polo and hangs out with Harry and William, the princes, etc. But at the same time, I don't make very much money as a journalist, to tell you the truth. I'm starting to do marketing now. Money's in marketing, guys, not journalism. But so I have a very I have a pretty simple life when it comes to what I spend on myself. And yet I'm getting flown around the world being treated like a celebrity. And so it's like the invisible paycheck, right? Like probably my top celebrity-ish moment is that Carlsberg flew me over to Copenhagen a couple years ago and then continues to invite me, which is so nice of them, but because of Forbes, anyway, the travel policy, I keep saying no. However, they had this big fancy dinner and the Prince of Denmark was there with me. Okay, transparency, I wasn't at his table and I've never told anybody this before, so don't repeat it. They were like, don't talk to the prince. I mean, I love to be like, I dined with the Prince of Denmark. They were like, don't look at him. Don't talk to him. Speaking of hot men, you guys, right now, go Google pictures of the Prince of Denmark. You will thank, if you're straight, if you like men, you will thank me. Oh, even if you don't like men, go look at his picture. He's so pretty. Anyway, but you know, like I'm saying, it's not glamorous. Sometimes I'll get brought somewhere by a brewery and they'll put me at like the Best Western or something. And you know what? I gotta be honest, like as long as we're being honest here, when that happens, sometimes I'm like, really? The Best Western? Do you know where I was last week? But I try not to be a jerk. It creeps in sometimes. But anyway, so
I give her a wake-up call every once in a while.
well, Herlinda and our friend Ruth, who introduced us, will literally say to me, yeah, Herlinda said this to me like last year. She was like, oh yeah, Ruth and I were just talking about what a spoiled brat you are. So part of this is like being humble. I mean, I'm being very forthright and telling you how things are, but nobody likes the spoiled brat on the trip, right? And like usually everybody on press trips is awesome. Every once in a while, there's a spoiled diva, spoiled, you know, whatever, a jerk on the trip. Don't be that person. But so the reason though, I feel like
But
I keep
always
alluding to
happy once you get there. I always say that. So she's not a brat when she's there. She just complains before she gets there.
That's a very good point. Thank you.
She's
Complain to
always
your friend.
with everybody else, though.
That's right. Thank you. But so it just, you know, to explain why I complain, and I'm aware that I'm complaining about stuff that's like very, you know, but traveling so often, and if any of you travel for your work, traveling all the time is chaos, right? Like it's so much fun. I love what we do. We eat and drink like princes of Denmark, queens, but at the same time, like usually your schedule's very packed. So if you've got like other work to do, deadlines, whatever, there's like very little chance to do it. You can be running around. When I went to Brazil, we took 5 internal domestic flights in Brazil I am not kidding, it was 4 days. It was exhausting. And so like doing anything else to like make sure that you're delivering is difficult. And then the time in between trips is like, you know, that's really precious time when I want to like settle in, do my laundry, take care of cleaning, see some friends and my boyfriend, things like that, check out new breweries around me. And like, it's really hard to have that happen. Even though I do have the privilege of saying yes or no to any trips I want, but that is a factor. Go ahead, Herlinda.
And the opposite end with me, when I get invited to come and do some judging, and I always carry my recorders and things with me so I can do interviews. And that's the beauty about radio, because I just wrote my first paid article for Blackberry Farm magazine. Actually, and I ended up writing it at Tara's house because I had to evacuate from a fire here. So I took a plane during COVID and at the end of September.
Yeah.
And flew there, and she's writing her book in the basement. I'm writing my first article upstairs, and I'm making us like homemade soups and things, and you know, making sure she's eating the whole time.
She stocked my freezer when she left. It was like so motherly. I'm still eating the stuff she left me. Anyway, go ahead.
Now that I know how difficult it is to write, I mean, kudos to her, because trying to keep all that together and then condensing it. And I'm doing radio where I'm getting to talk to them and I'm interviewing them, and I carry a Zoom HD4. It's a little bit older one, but it's great. It's got an equalizer and everything on it. And although I have to say my iPhone 11 Pro also does great video and recording. You never know when you're going to get an opportunity to interview someone or they invite you, would you like to go see, you know, the oldest distillery in France? Well, yeah, and things like that. Or, and so I always am ready for, like, even for my uncle's, I just went to my uncle's funeral in Texas, and I ended up interviewing the Sellises, Christine Sellis in Daytona, in Austin, who's PR Sellis's daughter and granddaughter. Oh, I see people posting. Okay. So you never know. I'm always ready for an interview and stuff as well. But when I go places, when I end up tagging on some time before or after to stay longer, generally either finding someplace inexpensive to stay or staying at a friend's house. And sometimes it's people that never even met before too. And that's also part of the beauty of women, the women in the beer industry as well. So Tara and I went to Sweden together. I met her there. She was already in Finland on a press trip at a spa.
She dragged me like usual, but as usual, she was right. It was amazing. But she's able to get me to meet her places and travel with her because she says it's for the book. She pretends, but then it is, and she takes awesome pictures. So go ahead.
Yeah. And I'm a photographer as well. So so we went and saw Jessica Heydrich, who won the first Pink Boots scholarship. I had her, you know, we went and met with her so she could interview her for her book, and stayed on a boat one night, like on the lake.
Awesome. In Stockholm with the view.
It was like $42. I wish we'd done it. Nothing else there was cheap though. Trust me, Sweden's pretty expensive. But and then our friend Andreas Felt, he said, there's a girl there. Let me introduce, he introduced us by Facebook Messenger. She's like, come and stay at my house. And we never met her before, but she worked for Omnipolo. She lived above the Omnipolo pizza place. Her apartment was right above there. And we went and stayed there for a few nights. Our friend Connie, it was great. And, there's this thing with, I invite women up, or anybody, if they want to come and stay with me also, if they're a friend of my friend, they're a friend of mine, they're, come and stay with me. But there's been that welcoming, it's a bit of safety as well too. That's really kind of nice. When somebody that when you're traveling, if you want to try to save some money or also get local flavor. Like I stayed at my friend Michelle's house in Shanghai. Our friend Michelle Wang started the first craft beer magazine in China, which was
finally China, we got back to it. Nice, go.
Yeah. So, which is a big deal in China. She's a woman starting this beer magazine, and then she ended up putting together these Chinese, Brewers Association awards and inviting me to come out, and and Tara's met with her as well. And then I went and stayed at her apartment in a typical Shanghai neighborhood, and going to her favorite dumpling shop and, eating noodles for breakfast and, things like that, which I would never have gotten to see if I was just only at a fancy hotel in downtown Shanghai. If I just stayed there, you don't know what you might miss as well. So, and any of you guys are welcome to come stay with me too. I just Russian River's right there.
You should do it. So a couple times I have, and I'm looking at the clock. Melissa, jump in if we need to wrap up. But I mean, I know Herlinda and I are happy to sit here and drink our beer and hang out with you guys and take questions for hours. I
was going to show them this. I'm drinking a beer from Malta, and I went to Malta after. So this is an example of me staying longer. The beer scene is huge in Shanghai, Amy. Just keep going. So after judging beer in Italy, my friends from England messaged me and said, hey, we own a little house in Malta and we're here right now. You're only 30 minutes from Bologna to Malta. So I did it, and I have a Maltese beer, what I'm drinking right now. And it's held up very well in my fridge.
How old is that?
They're going to
couple years at least.
Yeah. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but it's actually fantastic.
Well, so while you're sipping this Aventinus that I was talking about that has been in my cellar wrapped in this paper. Can you see that? It says brewed in 2003, and it's got all these things that happened in 2003 in English actually written, and it is phenomenal. It tastes like it probably hasn't deteriorated a bit. And what's that?
This is from Lithuania. This is their dark forest chocolate porter in Chilean whiskey barrels and from Lithuania. I'm trying to decide what to have now. And this was a beer. I judge the British Pie Awards in England every year as well. This one was made with Stilton cheese with the whey. It actually made it super refreshing. Yeah, that one's gone. And I just have to show Russian River's beer that like Marcus was talking about earlier.
Oh yeah, nice. That's awesome. What else? Wow, you've got a lot in front of you. You're going to be toasty.
One's from China. This was actually a craft brewery in China. Isn't it beautiful?
Which one was that? Do you remember?
I can't.
It's written in letters I can't read.
It says orange. It just says orange flavor wheat beer on the back.
Nice.
It was pretty good though. It wasn't bad.
So speaking of China, I'm like determined to get this China thing in.
Oh yeah, me going to Poland and then China. Stick.
Well,
dog.
Our connection to China is through Michelle Wang, who you mentioned before, and I know Michelle thanks to her Linda, and she said I don't know what time it is in Shanghai right now, but she said she was going to try to tune in.
Hours ahead. It's already Monday there, I guess, right? No, we're almost Monday.
Okay. So on this trip to China that I said I took, the second part was in Beijing, and I had just a couple hours to kill one afternoon in Beijing. And it just so happened that Michelle was also in Beijing at the same time. She was, I guess, hosting or facilitating a meeting of Chinese people who invest in breweries in China. She does a lot with that, and she brings a lot of people from China over to like the craft brewers conference, things like that. So she just is like an example of how this wacky travel beer life goes. She sent the brewery owner's driver over to my hotel to fetch me, and he was miserable because he would have gotten to sleep that afternoon or like go find his girlfriend for a tryst. Instead, he's got to like hustle across town, pick up this American journalist. He brings me over to the craft brewery in Beijing where Michelle is, covering, maybe facilitating this meeting with Chinese investors at this craft brewery. And she had said, we'll just want you to introduce yourself or something. And I was in a rush because I had to be back for a certain thing. And so I get there, I like sit and smile politely as they're conducting this meeting in Mandarin. And then it's time for Michelle to introduce me. I stand up. There's a conference table full of wealthy Chinese people. And, there's Celeste. Cool. And they start firing questions at me in Mandarin. Obviously, Michelle is there to translate. I don't speak a word, but they're like asking me all these questions I wasn't prepared to answer about like the global beer trade and like I'm like, oh my God, please, in my head, don't make any financial decisions based on what I'm telling you. I was not prepared for this at all. And then at the end, there were three women in this whole meeting, me, Michelle, and this female investor who like owns part of Lenovo, which is my laptop right now. No, she didn't pay me to say that, although I wish she had given me a laptop because I would have a nicer one than my journalistic salary can afford me. Anyway, not glamorous all the time, right? So they gave us all these huge bouquets of flowers. Us three women, they like made this presentation. So we're like these pageant, what are you in the pageant contestant?
China, and if you go to China, make sure you bring something for every host and every place you go to, even if it's something small.
Yeah, and I should have done that, and I didn't. And her Linda, that there was something that I was going to bring up earlier. There are two things that you always bring when you travel, right? One thing you just naturally bring, and it sounds like one thing that I thought was random that everybody asks you for. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
yes, you.
Oh, well, besides Russian River and Pliny the Elder, but
right. You bring Russian River everywhere you go, and
And but in China they wanted California wine. That was a big deal. But what's the thing? What am I thinking?
What did Connie asked you?
Oh,
So
Mexican spices. England, like Sweden, everywhere I go, they want Mexican spices and Mexican food. I've actually cooked at my friend's pub in London. It was a spur of the moment thing. I happened to be there judging the British Pie Awards, and Cinco de Mayo was going to be coming up while I was there, and in London, and I said, maybe I should make dinner for some people while I'm here. And they're like, hey, make it at our pub. And they ended up inviting the Royal Food and Drink historian who I judge. Actually, I invited him, but I judged the British Pie Awards with him, Mark Meltonville, who I've introduced Tara to as well. He's a
and he's in the book.
Yeah, and he's in the book. And if you guys ever want someone who knows colonial and he restored King Henry VIII's Hampton Court, the kitchens, and he's done the brewing and stuff there. So I cooked there, and all these all these food bloggers in London and stuff came, and I made homemade mole and all that, and people were going bananas. And so I did it again the next year, but this time I brought my own because chilies were like 50 times the price in London at Borough Market. It was fun, and then the cooks were having fun cooking with me at the pub. I'd actually stayed with those people, and I'm still friends with them. Thank you, Facebook and all that as well. And in Sweden, Connie's actually half Mexican and half Swedish, and brought her Mexican spices and stuff too. So I just take them, and if I'm taking Mexican oregano because they can't get it in Europe, I leave it in the original packaging where it says in English, oregano, so that I'm not don't get pulled over and end up in some kind of jail. The only place I haven't brought things like that was China because I didn't want to get myself in trouble just in case. But I did bring California wine and beer, and that was very, very welcome there. But you always want to bring that. And then in Poland, they told me I can't go back to Poland unless I always just bring some Russian River beer with me and Pliny the Elder. But I do bring other local beers with me from my local breweries so that they can taste them and try them as well too. Even though, the Russian River is they're like, bring. But then I bring, I'll bring Hen House or, Revision that they all went bananas for. All the judges in Portugal went bananas for. There's judges from all over the world. And it's so fun to sit down and share with people and try the beers and talk about things. And it's like my favorite part of the people, with judging and who I go and see as well. Poland is one of my actually favorite places to go, and they're like freaking fun. Except for that when I was judging in Poznan, which was the capital of Poland, but now it takes 3 flights to get there. I ended up I broke my molar on the first flight. I broke a molar all the way down on the plane at the beginning of the flight, trapped on the plane for, I had like 10 hours to London, had to quickly switch planes, broken molar. So I had to quit eating. And then I had, that went to Warsaw. Then I had to quickly take another plane to a puddle hopper thing to Poznan. I messaged the organizer of the Polish Beer Festival. I messaged him and I was like, oh my God, Thomas Kopiera, who's the #1 beer blogger in Poland. I'm like, Thomas, is there a way for a dentist to see me when I get there? And sure enough, he got this fantastic woman dentist. The taxi took me from the airport. I'm exhausted and starving because I couldn't eat anything. The taxi took me to her office at 10 p.m. at night in Poznan, Poland. She meets me at her office. She's dressed nicely. She'd been out to dinner, and she completely reconstructed my molar, completely did it, $50. So I was like, man, maybe I need to come back and do all my teeth. But this is what people.
That's not a bad idea.
I know. Yeah. And she did a great job. It's still there. So people in these other countries will bend over backwards. Strangers who've sometimes, you know them and they're getting other strangers to help me all over the place. And the same thing with Krakow. He put out a call on Facebook, who wants to take this American, radio beer host around Krakow before she comes to judge. And this college student who wanted to work on his English came and showed me around for free. And there's traveling. I've never really had the money to do these big organized travel, except for doing Bon Beer Voyage with Ruth. Those are worth it on the beer barge. That is the most seamless, stress-free way to go to West Blood and places like that as well, especially when you're evacuating from the 2017 Tubbs fire here. But sick in Poland. I got the flu, had to fly back. And 18 hours later, where I was supposed to be on a plane to Shanghai, Tara is in Napa for some media
wine trip. A wine media trip, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, so I had already said, yeah, come stay at my house for the night, and we want to see each other, of course, passing in the night, and I had to be in Shanghai.
Literally.
Yeah, literally passing the night. I am sick as a dog. Tara says, I'm gonna go takes my cart, she's like, I'm gonna go get you some soup.
Wait, hold on. I just want to stop you because I want to just make sure that we've emphasized the important points here.
Okay.
Herlinda had flown back from Poland that day, right?
Yeah.
The trip where she broke her molar, she then got really sick. She flies home from Poland. 18 hours later, she needs to be back at SFO to fly to Shanghai for that trip we were talking about. I was in Napa. I came. We coordinated that I was going to come stay at her house for that one night. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so she goes to go get me some soup. She comes back with goat soup. I'm sick as a dog with the flu. She went to a Mexican market down because she's gonna get a lot of these great Mexican markets, right? Oh, congratulations!
Oh my God, that's perfect for her. She's sick; she'll love it.
Yeah, that's what everybody wants when they have the flu is some goat soup.
I totally want to go like this right now, rock on.
I think we went to the
goat soup was delicious, except I was like, I wanted to bring it with me on the plane, and for some reason, I don't know. I can't imagine she was like, "Oh yeah, leave it in the fridge. I'll eat it." I don't know. I left it in the fridge because I think she told me to or something, and I was like, "You're not going to throw this away. You're going to eat this for breakfast, right?" Oh yeah,
yeah. Yes, yeah. I'll eat that for breakfast. No, it went in the trash. I'm sorry.
And I still hear about it to this day, but it's very funny, actually.
The problem wasn't the goat part. It's just that I had the flu and it also wasn't very good. And she wanted to take it on the plane. And I'm sure all the other passengers would have absolutely loved if that exploded. Although actually, you couldn't have taken the soup anyway on the plane.
Oh, no, it was pretty. Oh, no, you're right. You're right.
In your back.
No.
Hi, ladies. It's Vicki.
Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Vicki.
Sorry to interrupt you. I did post that the winners of the copy of your book is
Josephina
and Catherine. We'll email you and do all that stuff, but we are coming up to our time. You guys can continue. I mean, this is your session and I'm not going to make you stop. So just let me know what you want to do.
Does anyone have any questions? I mean, I was going to also mention too that I did do the Pink Boots tour of Germany. The very first one, 16 women on a bus for 9 days. It was awesome.
Beer women. Yeah.
And one guy, we managed not to kill each other. We had the best freaking time. And Bavaria, Bamberg area, almost all, both Tara and I have met Sister Doris, but separately. We both
Sister Doris is the last brewing nun in a more than 1,000 year history of brewing nuns in Germany. She's the last one. Go ahead.
We should have her on for next year. You'll
and actually talk for a second. I'm gonna grab her Mollisdorf. She's from Mollisdorf Abbey, and I have one of her beers. And Vicki, did you just say something? Because we can wrap. Herlinda, there were two questions before I do that, and not to cut you off.
There are two questions. Yes. Okay. Let me go ahead and ask them to you, and because I'm going to record your answer, so let's do it that way. Does that work?
Sure.
All right.
Sure. Okay.
So the first question is from Julie. It says, "Hey Tara, I've also done a lot of research and writing on the women's beer history. What was your favorite thing to learn and write about for your book?"
I don't know, Herlinda, what was my favorite thing to learn? No, I'm kidding, because she like organizes my life sometimes. She's like,
Well, we
okay,
went to go
we're gonna
see
go
Judy
here and there.
Ashworth also. That was amazing.
So actually, hanging out with Judy Ashworth, who opened and ran one of the first beer bars in the country on the East Bay of California, was incredible. But actually, if I had to pick one thing, I mean, there's so many, and I like love the question. And you know what? Maybe I'll do a panel sometime on just like that, what some of the highlights were.
I wish you would. Yeah.
Okay. She's my chief of staff and my actually my manager and my PR agent. Anyway, but what I do want to highlight is actually perfect for this panel because Herlinda made it happen. So real quick, as quickly as I can tell this story. So I started drinking what we back then Gen Xers and boomers called microbrews in the 90s. I went to college in Boston. Boston in the 90s for the East Coast was like primo craft brewery town. And then I moved to New York after college, or anyway, sometime after college, I lived in New York. Who knows? I've lived in like a million states. And I would drink Pete's Wicked Ale. I would drink Bass. And then I moved to San Francisco, actually, just like as a gap year between college and grad school. And my favorite beer, when I would like go out of my way to spend money on good beer, was Red Tail Ale from Mendocino Brewing. And it was like my happy day when I would buy some Red Tail. And this was, like I said, back in the 90s. Lo and behold, I'm researching the book. I learned, well, I'd known about New Albion as the first ground up craft brewery in America post Prohibition, opened in 1976, closed 6 years later, unfortunately. So I find out, thanks to a book written by Tom Acitelli, that Audacity of Hops, highly recommend it. There were actually 2 women heavily involved in the opening of New Albion, and nobody really knows about that. Teresa McCullough actually has highlighted this situation. Anyway, one of them, the main one, her name is Susie Stern Dennison. And there are all these connections between like Susie doing what she did and me going to California and then flying to Seattle on March 13th, 2020, like right during COVID. And anyway, I think I'm getting on a tangent. Right. This doesn't have to do with Susie. Focus, Tara. The story, though, it all does have to do with Susie. And if you read the book, I hope you do, you'll meet Susie right away. She's wonderful. But so when I lived in California, I knew nothing about craft beer history. I just knew I liked better beer. Probably thought I was cool. Who knows at that point? It was a long time ago. And when I went back to visit Herlinda, when I visited Herlinda that last trip in March 2020, yes, sorry, I'm being a little scattered, but that trip, which was the last trip I took before COVID really locked everything down, she took me to Hopland Tap. That's the official name, right?
Well,
a bar
called the Mendocino Brewing Company's tap room before, but Ron Lindenbush, from Lagunitas, who kind of left Lagunitas, basically, he reopened it as Hopland Tap. Okay.
And so we went there. It was like Sunday, March, like COVID had just started. And we got to hang out in the old, like mothballed brew house of Mendocino Brewing, thanks to Herlinda, because she knows Don Barkley, who used to work at New Albion. Yeah, I was really scattered about this story. I'm going to blame the Aventinas. But yeah, and so to be sitting with Don Barkley, who actually was the brewer with Jack McAuliffe of Red Tail, which I'd loved 20 years earlier, and to hang out in this brew house as somebody who has now made craft beer her life, knowing that in the 90s, I was just drinking it as this fan, was bringing everything really full circle. and felt so meaningful to me. Did that story make any sense at all?
Yeah. I mean, we were sitting and they took us into the back that used to be actually like a brewery part of it, like a little
Right.
area, and he pulls out these boxes of clippings and scrapbooks and things. And he's like, hey, do you want to look through these and see if you find anything? And we're finding stuff. And I'm like running and making copies. It was like, oh my God. And she's like, I can't believe you're making all these copies for me. And I'm finding stuff. I'm like, I'm a good researcher. And I'm like finding stuff. So because she's like totally in the moment. But
oh my God.
no. And, taking a ferry over to go see Jessica Heydrich, who won the first Pink Boots Scholarship, was pretty flippin' amazing. Sitting with Judy Ashworth telling us about how the guy that came in trying to sell her some beer, and she was sweeping the floor, thought she was just like the maid or something. And she owns this first craft beer bar because she kicked out Budweiser and Coors and everything out of there. And they told her she was never going to make it.
She was the first in the 80s to kick out Macro Brews. So she plays a great part in the book because she's hilarious and nobody outside California knows her.
Yeah.
And yes, everyone who writes a book should have a Herlinda to make copies of cool stuff in boxes from the 70s and 80s when you're in the moment, just like talking to the people who made it happen. And I feel like I interrupted you and I apologize. We've got one other question, I think, that we should get to, just in case they do want us to wrap up, which they probably do want to do soon.
Not a problem. We're good. So let me ask it then when I'm going to start answering right now too. So is there anything you had to edit out of the book looking back on, would you have preferred to leave in? If so, would you write another book? That's by Courtney.
Yes.
What?
Well, there's other people because we've been gone to Belgium.
That's right. We need to go to Belgium.
And the lady who brewed that beer. The lady.
Rosa?
Yeah. So
there are obviously parts about female Belgian brewers. Rosa Merckx from Liefmans plays a role. These are women I've interviewed in the past, maybe re-interviewed again for the book, but here's another transparency thing. Because of COVID, anything that you see about Belgium, we didn't go back and re-interview for in person. So yeah, Herlinda says we got to go back to Belgium and she says it's for the book. So, okay, fine. We'll go. Here's a really interesting thing that I learned writing this book, because I started writing the proposal several years ago. And between me starting to write the proposal and me actually writing the book like last year, so much had changed that there were a lot of women who, had I actually written the book a couple years ago when I first got the idea, would have been in the book because they're pioneers. Mm-hmm. They're people who pay attention to this stuff. Everyone knows their names. But by the time last year came around and I had to make the decisions about what to include and what not to, they didn't necessarily make the cut anymore. Not because they're any less important, but we're really talking about 200,000 years of history, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to make choices and cut out certain pioneers in favor of discussing other issues that have come up in more modern times. Whoa. So it really kills me, actually. There's some people in the book I want to apologize. Some people who aren't in the book I want to apologize to because they should be in the book. And there's just only a certain amount of space. Yeah, go ahead.
And then people that, we didn't like Jessica, let's go to Mexico City and see Jessica Me, and, you haven't been to Mexico at all. And there's some serious, brewing history there as well. But also one of my favorites was here I flew to Philadelphia to Tara's house to get away from a fire. And Dr. Pat from the University of UPenn took us into the archaeology museum, which was closed, and gave us a private tour for the book, showing her, all of us. I videoed it and everything.
He's a beverage archaeologist and has been involved in some of the most groundbreaking discoveries, digs of beverage related findings. Go ahead.
Right. The Midas yeast all that. These the ancient vessels and things that they were making, you know, like how old was that stuff? Like it was.
I mean, he has stuff from Sumerian times, Babylonian times, and this isn't part of the book because it's not necessarily related to women. But the thing that blew me away from that meeting was he took out this baggie, remember, of like, I don't know, some kind of powder. I need to ask him what it was again. I was so stunned. I don't even know what he was showing us. It was Midas's tomb.
Yes, it was it was from like some of the stuff from the
Oh, okay.
Of the amphoras that they got into that they were brewing in King Midas's tomb, and wasn't it? Yeah, and then it was just like, I mean, they obviously took the yeast that they propagated, and he did that with Sam Caljon, right? With Dogfish.
Dogfish Head. Yep, their ancient ale series.
He drank that beer in his office.
That's right.
With sandwiches because the cafe was closed. So we took the sandwiches back to his office, and he opened up the King Midas beer. Like there's only a few left for us to drink in the office with him, and he signed some books for me because she'd been there before. With
the baggie full of stuff from King Midas's tomb.
Yeah, I have pictures of the baggie, and someday somebody's gonna look through my thing and what for dirt, you know, like what's in that baggie? Back to oregano, but
right, exactly. Yeah, and so like here again, I get back to like, we just live these regular lives when we're home, right? But we've been so lucky, and you don't have to be like the Forbes contributor. You don't necessarily even have to be, you know, this international judge. Like it helps open doors, but like there are so many, like if you're curious, I think that's part of the message here too. Like if you're curious and intelligent and you reach out to the right people, like doors will open for you, you know. For instance, like, you know, we're talking about staying with people we don't know. Like that's because, well, part of it, not all of it, but part of it is because like if I'm going somewhere, like when I went to Vegas a couple years ago, I posted on the Pink Boots Facebook page.
That's a different kind of staying with people you don't know. Vegas, I don't know, but
yeah, not like that. You know, like, okay, who's got a brewery in Vegas? Who owns a bar? Who owns a restaurant? I want to come meet you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Pink Boots, you have to be in the industry, but there are like so many forums. Like I'm part of a couple Facebook forums, like international ones for women who are into craft beer. And I know one that I'm thinking of starting in Atlanta. I don't have friends in Atlanta anymore, but when I go to Atlanta, you bet I'm going to be like, who wants to hang out with me in Atlanta? And hopefully somebody will be like, I got a guest room, come stay with me. You know what I mean? So anyway, the point I'm making now is like, if you show interest and are resourceful, you can do this too.
Be open to coincidences, saying yes. I mean, I've had people tell me there must be a man involved if you're able to travel, you know, this much. And I'm like, no, I don't need a man involved. Or I'll have other people tell me, my husband or my boyfriend would never let me travel like as much as like you do, or go to the places you do by myself and stuff. I said, that's why I don't have a husband. There's, or either that I'd be with somebody who was cool or who wanted to go with me, although I'm fine. But, you know, it's just also about like saying, you know, be willing to say yes. You know, you never know what's going to, you know, you never know what kind of opportunity is going to happen. You may end up on a live broadcast radio show for 7 years, and that just opened up a bunch of other doors. You may meet your new best friend, you know, that I know, huh? We're just talking about like, when we get a beer like this, we're like, you know, Natalie gives me this ridiculous beer that they've got that for their not homebrew club, for their beer club. And
from Russian River, Natalie, co-owner of Russian River.
And I'm like, oh, I'm going to save that to drink with Tara. And it would be nice if we were, you know, sometimes it's going to end up me bringing it to another town, not even her house or my house. And we end up, you know, we got GABF coming up and CBC, and all that, I'll probably put this in my suitcase and carry it around so we can drink things together. And I would really like to meet any of you that, when we go to these things, like to, the next CBC, if you're wanting to come out and check out Russian River Brewery, I am fully vaccinated. I'm working in a vaccine clinic for a reason. You're welcome to come stay with me. And I mean that, and then maybe I'll come visit you. Everybody's got something interesting wherever they live.
Hi, it's Vicki again. This has been such a wonderful talk, and people are still staying on, and I think it's awesome. For both of you, email Melissa on your suggestions for next year. We would love to hear from anybody who would like to email the summit and give some suggestions or anything else. Please do. We will be again emailing Josephina and Catherine with the pertinent information for the books. And
Vicki and I will be down to see you, Herlinda.
oh, heck yeah.
Please do. And then I was going to try to put my my Instagram is Beer Golf Girl Travels on Instagram and Beer Golf Girl on Twitter. And the show is Brouhaha. There's a Facebook page for it. I haven't done other pages with it yet. But if you're coming out here, they know how to get a hold of me. But just thank you. Beer Golf Girl. Actually, the Instagram is Beer Golf Girl Travels, and my Twitter is Beer Golf Girl that she's got on there.
But you're like on lockdown on Twitter. Anyway, whatever.
For my wine one, I am. I don't think I am for the beer one.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Beer Golf Girl Travels on Instagram. And
Brouhaha.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's on podcast too. It gets transferred over to podcasts. So they haven't redone the new ones for a while, but you can see we have an interview with Marcus Baskerville.
Nice.
And
SoundCloud?
he was putting out on SoundCloud. I think it is on SoundCloud, and it's on Reddit and then iTunes podcasts. And also if you go to the I think it's called the Drive with Steve Jackson's the main big show.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
Vicario Productions, Vicario Productions, and then you can find all the links and everything for that as well, and media requests and everything too.
Is it Jackson with CK or with an X?
X.
Okay. Well, again, Vicki, I don't know. I'm speaking for both of us. We're happy to keep staying, but I know you have other content to get to. So if you need to yank us down,
we have so many more stories to tell and adventure.
No, we're loving it.
Right. It's time for a lunch break though, and we need to just take a breath. We've had so many tech issues today. I think all of us just kind of want to lay on the floor and just not get up for a few minutes. So
Definitely let's get a Zoom chat together and start planning some travels.
Yes, please.
Come and stay with me.
Prost,
Prost,
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers, Tara. Miss you.
Bye, love. Mwah.